They've only got two.
Sure, I know, but look at this, and then look at it now.
No, that's okay. Thank you. Okay. What?
This one doesn't have the numbers on it.
I forgot to give you the answer.
Okay, yeah.
Sorry. Thank you. It is 6:33, and I call the September 2nd Planning Board meeting to order. First on the agenda, the minutes, Mr. Secretary.
The minutes of August 12th and August 26th have been reviewed and submitted. Recommend approval.
Second.
Any discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
Now we move on to continuation of public hearing. Oh, sorry about that, yes. I'm going by my old that I had earlier. There must be another. Okay, approval not required. And we have one William and Adrian Gillooly, number 10 Sycamore Street. And is there anybody here who wishes to speak? Okay, Marlene, is there any problem with this?
No, I can recommend endorsement.
Okay. As you'll see, it's a combination of two small lots.
So this is not creating another building lot?
No, it's actually
Size, that's fine.
combining
How big is this?
That's all I need to know.
lots. right off of
Mine
Mara
used to.
Vista Avenue, and the address is on Sycamore Street. Does anybody have any questions?
These are the two we're combining?
Right here, side by side, I
Okay,
believe.
Side by side,
North
No.
and south?
No?
No.
Oh, wait a minute, no, I'm sorry, yes.
One north and south.
north and south.
Okay.
Is that correct?
Inside the heavy dark line?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay.
So the other line on the adjoining lot doesn't mean anything for us tonight?
You're only looking inside
Inside, okay.
the heavy line.
Okay.
So this was one lot with a shed, and two lots with a shed on one and a house on another, and now it's one lot with both. Understood.
So not creating any new building lot.
Can I slide this over? Absolutely.
Any other questions?
No.
Will somebody move an endorsement?
Just a minute. We want
Okay.
to give everybody a chance to,
All set?
all set?
Yeah.
Somebody please move an
I'll
endorsement.
move an endorsement.
Second that.
Okay, it's been moved and seconded that we endorse this plan, the A&R. All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed, abstained. Now we move on. Continuation of public hearing. D'Addario Enterprises LLC site plan review and special permit to construct a 14,718 square foot pharmacy building, excuse me, on 2.84 acres located at 419 East Falmouth Highway with associated parking, drainage, and landscaping.
Did we get any comment, written comment in the correspondence file on this?
I don't believe we did. Did we get any written comments on this? In the,
Do you want to, have you opened the hearing?
oh.
We never
we've heard
closed it.
already.
Okay.
We never closed
We
it
left it
yet.
open
It's a continuation.
Yeah.
in the event that was
Um,
written correspondence.
You got a letter from the landscape architect, from the attorney.
And I believe that's going to be presented tonight.
Yeah.
In my understanding, that Mr. Ahmed is going to present what would be incorporated in those letters.
Yeah, and you have a referral from the design review committee.
And we talked about that last week.
Now we have it in writing.
Yeah.
Good evening, Bob Ament, attorney for the applicant. We did submit a letter last week. We submitted updated architectural plans which showed the removal of the little dormers that the design review committee recommended be removed, and which is fine with us. They're really just decorative, but they don't face the street. They face the other commercial building on the site were they to be installed. And this morning, Dan Celine submitted a letter as requested by the town planner detailing the dimensions of the freestanding fieldstone wall that's proposed. It would be 30 inches high. Now that's on top of the landscaping that is 6 inches up from the parking lot, because there's a 6-inch curb, and then the wall would be 30 inches up for a total of 36 inches of the curb and the wall. The usual height of automobile headlights is 24 inches, so this would effectively screen the lights. The wall at Dunkin' Donuts, for comparison, is 6 inches lower. We asked Celine whether our wall would be too high. He pointed out that we're going to be putting landscaping, beds of flowers and others, vegetation, in front of that wall as decoration, and so it should rise a little bit higher to show off the stone wall. It's also 18 inches in width. So that's the information that Celine provided. There's apparently no other comment in the file, I was told. And I think it's worth noting, I didn't say this last week, but We met, that is, the developer and myself presented the plans to the Board of Directors of the East Falmouth Village Association. I believe they were also discussed at a recent annual meeting. We've also met early on with the principal of the East Falmouth School and the facilities director for the public schools. The fact that there is no opposition, not even any comment suggesting changes to the plan, I think is a indication that the community is quite satisfied with the plans that we've presented. Thank you.
Okay. I'm assuming there may still be a few questions that the board has since we just saw this for the first time last week.
I do not have any questions.
You don't have any questions? Paul, you have a question?
I have just one quick question. I realize, excuse me, I realize the property is basically a CVS area, but there's an existing series of buildings on the east side of that property. Do I imply because of these proposed islands that is vertical parking on the left side of those buildings? Is that what that's intended here? And then you have...
Yes, that's correct.
24 feet of clearance similar to the other side?
That's correct. That's correct.
So the parking for these buildings will be on the side here, on the west side of those...
Yeah, there's also considerable parking to the rear of that building, as you see, quite a bit. There's also parking in front
That
of
could
the
be
pedestrians.
parking, too.
Sure,
Okay,
sure.
thank you.
Thank you.
Are there any other questions or comments from the board? Yes.
I just had a question. They mentioned the design review committee. I went online and couldn't find any minutes posted from the design review committee, and you said that something happened at that meeting. I couldn't find anything to that
Well, the
effect.
design review committee did submit to the planning board a letter. I guess you have it
I
there.
was questioning whether they had minutes as it relates to the open meeting law.
Why would he know?
Yes or no,
It's
it's
not
fine.
for, I'm not aware that they have minutes or that they don't have minutes. And it's really all I have to say about the design review committee.
So the letter would speak for itself then as to what they want to see. I know where you're coming from.
I'm going to leave what I said alone. Just said it, that's it.
And the design review committee is purely advisory. They don't make decisions. I frankly don't know what their obligations are.
Any further questions? Okay. Huh? Yes, no?
No.
Okay. Okay, at this time then, I close the hearing, and I need a motion to take it under advisement.
Make a motion that we take this under advisement.
Is there a second?
Second?
All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed, abstained. So then we move on for discussion/decision, and we have the same application that we're now going to discuss. Madero Enterprises LLC site plan review and special permit to construct a 14,718 square foot pharmacy building on 2.84 acres located at 419 East Falmouth Highway with associated parking, drainage, and landscaping. Is there any discussion that anybody wishes to have on this?
Just a comment. I'm glad to see that people are paying attention to other things that have happened with this board. And I think this is a good project for the area. Having spent a lot of time teaching at East Falmouth School, and I still go down Davis on a regular basis. And I think the East Falmouth Village Association, their approval of it speaks volumes. So I think this is a good project. Should go forward.
Ralph?
Yeah, I have issues with the, I don't know, whatever happened to it. I have issues with the circulation of the traffic in there. We've got, it was brought up last meeting, we questioned the developer about driving through the parking areas to get to the drive-through. And if you take a look at how where the drive view is situated, if you cue that back into around that circle, that whatever it is there, then the cars exiting the drive-through have to cross the traffic that's entering the drive-through. You will recall that I had requested arrows to be placed on the plan indicating where the traffic was. There are none over here. And so when you have traffic exiting the drive-through, it then has to cross the traffic that's coming down and entering the drive-through and/or potentially crossing a queue. So there are two issues there that I have with the plan as far as circulation is concerned. One is that, and the other is the fact that a good portion of the users of the drive-through will be driving through the parking lot. And I'd be curious as to other comments from the board.
Ken?
Well, the one thing about that I looked at the plan thoroughly, the drive-through actually has two ways to queue this drive-through. Cars can come down into it, and cars also here and around from the back. There are some arrows. I don't know if your plan has the arrows. Ours have.
You can't go across the
No,
back.
can't go across the back, Ken.
Yeah, but you
Yeah,
can't
it says
have the
there's
queue
supposed to be a
coming
not
in
in
the
no
back
entrance
way.
sign this way, Ken. Right here, there's supposed to be a sign here.
You're on a different page.
Oh, that's right. That's right. I see what you're talking about.
Yep. They presented that there'd be a signage here. One way. Traveling this one, they could avoid, they could go the wrong way.
Yeah.
Gotcha.
That's
Right, and that's
right.
right, that we mentioned about the do not enter signs over here. Okay.
The queue is designed to accommodate how many cars?
That's the question.
Yeah. it is.
Marlene, do you know the answer to that?
I do not.
Okay.
But we were told that this is much less a volume of a queue, and there was some matrix that they designed it for. It'd be good to know that.
Yeah, and it was like 2 to 3 cars.
I don't remember.
Why don't we ask Mr. Ahmed
That would be
and
something.
get the answer on that?
Yeah, actually, you can't.
I did not look that up in the traffic portion of the 240. And I know that in the past, queues have been definitely considered in our plans.
But
And I'm not just sure whether or not there is something in the bylaw that addresses the number of cars that have to be accommodated, because the Dunkin' Donuts and all of the others have the same issue.
Ken?
this is not a fast food place, remember that. It's
I
people
didn't
coming
say
to
it
pick up
was.
prescriptions. So I remember there's 2 to 3 cars in the queue. And you can look at the structure there. If you look at the other CVS, this queue is better than the existing one that is here now. So I personally have no problem looking at that and understanding why they did that.
Do you
It's-
want to ask Mr. Ahmed how many cars this queue is?
I'm okay with that, Steve.
Okay. Bob?
Well, the bylaw in section 240-109, right at the end, that has the section about drive-throughs, actually does distinguish between fast food restaurant queues and other drive-throughs. And the number of cars that need to be accommodated at a drive-through other than fast food is only 3, which this meets. Contrast, as Mr. Medeiros is saying, to a fast food restaurant where the bylaw actually requires 10. So we have plenty of room, and it is true that when a car exits the drive-through, they will have to stop and turn back towards.
I shouldn't let you go on any further, Bob.
We're done.
The answer is 3. So, and that, I think, satisfactorily answers the question. Everybody?
I just a comment, I just look at drive-through now as a fact of life.
Yeah,
It's
they
just
are.
something that we have to deal with, and especially with an aging population. And, looking at the site plan and everything else, I really don't know how you can do both a drive-through and have your loading dock and your disposal and all that, and keep it so that it's kind of in the back and out of view and all that. I think it's a challenge for any designer to come up with something that is totally universally going to work perfectly every time. I think there's going to be times where it may not work perfectly, but I think on average, I think it'll be fine.
Doug?
And I agree, I thought about asking them to consider moving it forward, but really, it belongs in the back where the pharmacy is, and also, this is going to look a lot nicer, having a green area toward the front, and if we move this forward, it's going to ruin that, so that's why I chose not to make an issue of that.
Okay, are there other comments? Then it appears that the one thing that's come out tonight that we want to definitely have in the conditions is the arrowing showing the traffic direction on the site. Is there anything else anyone can think of right now that specifically they want to see in the conditions?
Well, the signage that you mentioned on the...
The
Right.
do not enter signs clearly do not enter loading
Correct.
vehicles only, something of that nature. That's all.
Yeah, I was kind of thinking that with the arrows, but you're right, you need more than just an arrow there.
And we haven't really discussed lighting, but...
That is covered under our bylaws, that it has to be
Right.
downlighting, and I know
And the
this is-
sign lighting we did discuss, so...
Right,
I think I understand.
the sign lighting, and we also discussed the size of the signage, and it was testified to us that it would be the same as on Davis Trace, which we found acceptable. So we have, and maybe we can repeat a number of those things from that permitting. So that would be with the lighting and the signage. What else can I think of that was in there? Those are the principal things.
And I believe that Mr. Celine indicated that the, is it arborvitae or whatever, this planting would continue all the way down, and I
He
see
did.
that
Yes,
on.
some of the drawings,
Mhm.
we have two different drawings.
Right.
Ours
Yeah.
shows it all the way down,
Oh, yeah, yours doesn't.
does
Right.
not.
Okay.
So I guess we just need a final, updated, complete plan.
Which it looks like this is, but it doesn't
Well,
have the
maybe,
signage.
maybe on another page.
Well, so your decision will reference the complete set of the site plan drawings, all the pages, as well as the landscape plan, as well as the revised architectural details. So it'll be the complete package referenced.
Right.
Okay. Is there anything else anyone can think of at this point? Yes, Paul?
I noticed that Common Enterprise today reports that this is a done deal. I don't think it's quite a done deal yet, but it's planned for a year from now. And I know the construction by the state is going to occur hopefully this winter, but I would suggest that we get the construction drawings and make some reference that the contractor has to coordinate his efforts with the ongoing DOT work that will be in that area, assuming it's not going to be finished at that time. Probably would do that, but I think that's important.
Conditional.
The intersection should be done by then.
Yeah, so, I think that was all, it was testified to us that that was.
Sorry?
I think it was testified to us that it was kind of a lockstep sort of thing, but how many streets have we seen that have been torn up right after they put down, right, Paul? Okay, so, we've given all of the information that we'd like to see in the decision, and we will have a draft motion in front of us on the 16th. Remember, we do not meet next week because it's the primary. So, the draft motion, yes?
Could we also have a final set of plans with everything discussed at that time?
Surely.
All on one set?
Oh, wait,
No,
Marlene, you
no,
said
no. No, these are conditions. The hearing's closed, so you're
Right.
not accepting anything else, so.
No, okay, but what I just, last week we had the same thing. Doug had one plan and I had another.
Well, you have the landscape page. This is the complete, we have you have a complete set of plans here, they're just broken apart.
Broke up in different
Oh,
pieces.
okay.
Yeah.
Okay, so
These
we
are
only have
the-
one set that's spread amongst all of us, is that what you're saying?
You have 2 sets of site plans and 1 revised landscape plan,
That's what's confusing.
so
Okay.
the decision will reference the complete set,
Okay,
which are all here.
Okay,
now I understand. Had the same problem last time.
yeah. So we'll look for the decision on the 16th.
Okay.
This decision required supermajority.
Yes, it does, because it's special permit.
I
Okay.
am scheduled to be out of the country at that time.
Well, there are all 7 of us here, so we will have 6 of us, and
Okay.
unless something weird happens, I'm sensing that the board does approve of this. So we should not have any trouble meeting the 5 votes. Thank you, though, for bringing it up, Paul. Okay, thank you. Then we move on. Applicant GSTBS LLC, special permit modification to allow for storage of non-agricultural equipment and materials at the existing commercial nursery located at 25 Proctor Lane, East Falmouth, BSS Design. And you want to say something, Marlene? Okay.
No.
I think, I'm not sure, but I think everybody but I was able to go on the site visit for the board. So you have a good sense of what is currently going on out there. And there are certain barriers, I guess one would say.
Partitions.
Yeah, but no, it's more than that, because we've got a couple of questions we have to ask to even know whether this is properly before us right now, under 238-38M. And the first one is sort of 2 parts. Is it in agricultural use? And the second part, for commercial nursery activities. We have to answer that question first. So if it is, then we go on. If it isn't, then we can stop right there, if it's not properly before us with that description. Yes, Jim?
Just a question on that. If we determine that it isn't and it has lapsed, it reverts to residential zoning, the special permit goes away?
No.
What does it revert to if,
It reverts to the decision we made in 2004, where the back 1.2 acres could be used for the storage of certain materials that were specified for nursery usage.
okay, that's fine.
And that is the special permit. And you're asking us to modify the special permit.
The answer is it reverts back to its old special permit, not
That
to
is correct.
residential use.
That
Okay,
is correct. And
that's all I needed to know.
the bylaw says that it needs to be currently in agricultural use for commercial nursery operations. And so the first decision we have to make is it currently in use for commercial nursery activities?
Well, given that the owner is in the landscaping business, I know it's a stretch, but there are some things that are growing that could be sold. It's not like it's a really functional business, but it is something that's been there and it's still there. So, I mean, it's a tough call. There's not a lot left, but there is something, some remnant of it. So it's a tough one. But even if we find that there is a nursery or a partial nursery, I don't see how that helps with all the uses that are there now. So that's the second question, I guess.
It really is, because the second question, according to our bylaw, is, are the proposed uses previous to the current activities? So the things that are going on now, the sawmill or wood chipping, there are 3 contractors on it.
2 tree companies.
Yeah, are they previous to, and I think one would say necessary to, the landscaping business.
Or accessory to.
Accessory to, the landscaping business. So the first one is it in agricultural use for commercial nursery activities? And that's the first thing that this board has to come to a decision on. And I will refer you to Brian's description. He wrote us a memo. And I'm going to go flipping through here trying to find it, with his opinion on it. And he puts this argument forward. Ken?
I toiled over this bylaw, thinking about what Attorney Moynihan said about, the M and the K versus the setbacks. And let me give you what I interpret out of this. The bylaw M has some vagueness to it. And maybe we as a planning board, this is something we need to look at, because it doesn't allude, it only talks about modifying. It doesn't talk about how it goes into, like if somebody want to expand their nursery business. It just talks about modifying a special permit within a nursery one. And the one that I noted here, it says, any extensions, alterations, or change to activities approved under this section shall be allowed by the planning board. And it talks about the board applying the requirements and standards of 240-216. Any such change, alteration, or extension shall not be substantially more detrimental to the neighborhood than the existing activities. That I totally agree on. But I think that should have been at the beginning of allowing a nursery to be there in the first place. An accessory use to a nursery. That's what I meant. So to determine it, it's kind of hard to determine. I mean, yes, there is agricultural there. But the M, this is twofold, but are we modifying first? Are we talking about modifying the special permit first? Or are we talking about the new special permit first?
It's the same thing. They're asking us to modify the permit to accommodate what they're asking for.
I actually think we're asking ourselves. The first question is does the special permit even exist because it has lapsed? My understanding was, if there was no ongoing nursery operation, they don't have a special permit to modify. I think it goes away in 2 years. And so I think that's why we're asking the question in this order. Are we seeing a commercial nursery there? And I think that's why we're doing this in sequence. Because if we say yes to that, then we can say, okay, you still have your own special permit. Now you're asking to modify it, and we can say yes or no to that. That's the way I was interpreting it. I don't know if that's correct or not.
That sounds right to me.
That's the way I saw it. It's
But then
almost
we'd have-
exactly what
then
Ken
we'd
said
have
with
to-
just a little spin.
We'd have to prove that, in fact, there was no commercial nursery activity going on for 2 years.
Or vote that we saw it. I mean, some of us went there, saw trees growing, and they've been there for 4 or 5 years.
The thing, and that's the thing that I wanted to talk about, like this bylaw, it doesn't give any guidance into the fact of, what it just allows. A nursery under that, gets waived all the setbacks. There's houses that are close.
Well, it doesn't get waived all of them.
Well, no, the setbacks of the K, 500 for
Right.
a contractor's yard. We all know that that's a contractor's yard right now, period. With all the operation going on, they are operating a contractor's yard, whether there's nurseries there or not. And it's kind of a gray area, and I think this bylaw actually needs to be looked at again.
Probably needs to be tightened up, but we're operating under it right now.
Right.
I think we can proceed if we ask and answer the first question. Do we see an ongoing nursery? No, don't jump to the second one yet, because I guess if we don't see an ongoing nursery, we don't have to ask the second one.
Well, the thing that I want to comment is when the special permit was granted to begin with, there was 7 or 8 greenhouses going and all kind of other stuff, and that's why the initial special permit was awarded. There was 8 greenhouses or 7 huge greenhouses,
And
so it wasn't a question.
And in the original decision, the original special permit, the accessory use was for storage of like stone materials and landscape supplies that were not really germane to the nursery, but yet it was a special permit for this non-nursery material storage. But it wasn't for other contractors and equipment.
Didn't we hear testimony that there hasn't been any nursery activity there, that it was rented out for, what, 3 or 4 years?
There's been no greenhouses for 4 years, right out of the applicant.
I think,
And I look at what's there now, is I really wouldn't consider that a commercial nursery. That's my opinion.
Okay, I want to make it known that in the file folder, there is a letter from, what is it, Dale Tree Movers? That in fact, very recently, he bought trees from Tavares, and that, in fact, he has others on order from Tavares. So that's an argument saying there is some current nursery use for the property. And I do want those of you who have not necessarily looked at the file to know that.
So for the sake of argument, let's say that we all agree that there is a commercial nursery there. So then
Some commercial.
Some commercial nursery there, so we move on to the second question.
Okay, but there's another thing I also want to point out, is that our original permit was given to Mr. Tavares to operate a nursery, not to Mr. Tavares and sub-lessors, lessees, whatever.
Yeah.
And I want to point that out as part of the permit, that it was given to Mr. Tavares, and it was given for the 1.2 acres for accessory stones and so on that he used in his landscaping business as part of the nursery, and when he went out to do the job. Yes, Jim?
I just have a question on that point. Is a special permit given to an individual or granted to a parcel? Because that's what we're talking
Good
about.
question. I don't know the answer.
I always thought
It's the person.
it's the person.
Okay.
So
GST,
if you sell a property, it's a different person, the special permit goes away automatically?
It has to be transferred.
Special permit has to be transferred upon sale?
Because this is specific to this business.
No, I've sold special permit properties and I didn't have to transfer them. I'm just going from my own experience. That was my question. I think if we're unclear on this, maybe we need some advice.
I'm not unclear on it.
You're,
Marlene says no, then they have to transfer it.
so,
And we have been asked to transfer before too, over, I mean, it doesn't happen frequently. I remember maybe once or twice in all the time I've been on the board for a transfer. Similar, I guess, to, one could say, the liquor licenses, if somebody buys a store, that the selectmen have to authorize a transfer. But I think from my point of view, it's crucial that this was given to Mr. Tavares. It was an active nursery, an active landscaping firm at the time, and the special permit was limited to the 1.2 acres that was supposed to be gated and only have access at particular times. And the equipment that was on the site could be used to move the equipment around, the pieces around on the site. And there was to be no rock splitting and that sort of thing on the site. The decision is quite clear in that. So now we're being asked to modify that special permit. And to modify it, I'm going over this for a reason. I think it's important that we all have the same understanding. And Marlene, please correct me if I'm wrong. To modify the special permit, the property has now been...
point of order.
What?
Can we, I think we're going back and forth. I would be much more comfortable if we had a vote whether, if the ongoing nursery was there.
Okay,
And then move on in our conversation, because
that's fine.
I seem to think we're moving back and forth and I'm getting confused.
It's
is that-
confusing to me
Is
too.
that all right with everybody else?
Yeah, I just have a comment on that. The issue of whether it's active nursery or not is an important one. There is correspondence saying there is something going on in the active nursery. We've been there, it's a very minor part. But if you recall, Attorney Moynihan is saying that the percentage is not really important, that if it is an active nursery, it still should be considered there. So I think for purposes of our discussion, we ought to say, okay, it's a nursery, let's move on and decide what the next issue is going to be.
Ralph?
All right, you referenced the letter from our administrator, Mr. Curry, about this issue. And I'd like to read something that I think is germane to what Jim's question is. And he says here, however, the application pending before the planning board for 25 Crocker Road fails to meet the threshold criteria above because the lot is not currently in agricultural use for commercial nursery operations. The suggestion that the current planted areas rise to the level of commercial nursery operations is untenable. Such an interpretation would make any backyard gardener eligible for this special permit. So now you have a special, now you have a professional opinion, okay? That isn't just a comment by someone, you or me or anybody else. That's a comment made by a person whose profession is to deal with this and interpret this using experience and training. Okay, so that settles that argument for me.
No, it doesn't, because the next paragraph starts with, even this, if this threshold finding could be made, so he leaves the door open for the finding, I think, that by us as a board, that we can actually go out there, look at it, and with our own minds, make up a judgment, and not just do what we're told.
We're not being told, we're being given an interpretation. He does, at the end, it's my recommendation
Right.
is to close the hearing and simply deny the application. Okay, we're not being told.
I understand. I happen to feel that there is an ongoing one, and I'd like to see us get by that step first. And if we don't get by it, then we're done, and we don't have to waste any more time.
Okay, well, let's poll the board members.
That's what I'd like to see, so we don't waste, then Ralph, I'm on your side once we get over that issue, and it's a moot point.
Okay, and you can also take into consideration the fact that the enforcement officer has issued a cease and desist order saying that the property is being used as a contractor's yard.
Different subject right now, I think. That's what I'm trying to do, is differentiate from those 2 points.
I understand.
Because we're going back and forth and back
I
and
don't
forth.
think it is. If it's being used as a contractor's yard, then it's not being used as a nursery.
Let's take a poll of the board members then, because what Jim would like to see is what sort of an agreement or disagreement do we have?
Just on Ralph's point, I know we have contractors' yards that are nurseries as well. He made it like they're mutually exclusive.
They're not.
And they're not. And because we've approved one here, and I just wanted to, I understand your point, Ralph, but I think we've approved contractors' yards and nurseries as the same thing.
Okay, let's take a poll. Is this property being currently used as a nursery? Let's start with you, Ralph.
No.
Paul?
Based on my going out there, it's such a limited amount, I would say no.
Bob?
Not in my opinion.
I think I saw stuff growing there, and I think the same stuff was growing there when I went there 6 years ago, when I used to shop there. So I'd say, yes, to a limited, it's limited, but I'm not gonna, to me, it's yes or no, and the answer is yes.
Doug?
And I agree it's limited, but we do also have testimony from Mr. Dale that he still does business with this nursery. I'm going to say yes.
Ken?
Under the criteria, no, it's not, that I see.
I don't even have to break a tie, do I?
No, that solves everything.
So we're saying no, it is not a nursery, currently an operating nursery.
And then I have a question, do we have any further discussion on the next point if it's not a nursery? How can they be applying under a special permit for a nursery if we just determined it wasn't a nursery?
Correct.
So are we done?
We could be, unless people feel that they want to go on and discuss further on this. Because we've already reached that first threshold, no, it is not a nursery. And I understand Mr. Dale is currently buying some trees. But I would also say, even if we had said that there was a nursery there, however limited, whether there was one tree in burlap, and that made it a nursery, I would say we have a problem that what they are looking for, any such change, alteration, or extension shall not be substantially more detrimental to the neighborhood than the existing activities. And we've heard numerous people testifying how it being used by 3 different contractors and their activities, which in my opinion have nothing to do with anything pre-existing to the nursery usage. And that was the next level. Wait a minute, have nothing to do with the pre-existing nursery. First, they don't have anything to do with the pre-existing existence of the nursery and its operations. And secondly, they are definitely more detrimental to the neighborhood. So I've got 2 problems with that. And so I'm just simply going and adding more ammunition.
I have a point of order. I don't understand why we're having further discussion if we just determine the nursery doesn't exist.
There may be quite a bit of argument as to whether.
But we just voted it didn't. And now we're having further discussion that it might, I'm confused.
Fine, it doesn't exist.
Well, there was 2 questions raised, a new special permit and a modification of the
Well, we
existing
just-
special permit. No, I'm just letting you know, that. So that's the 2 questions she was talking about. There was 2 questions. I mean, we answered no to one, but we didn't really answer the second one.
But didn't we say that there wasn't a nursery there? So how can we be discussing,
There are 2 people who said
others-
there is a nursery there.
I know, I'm just confused at why we're continuing the
I
discussion.
believe that if it had been unanimous, I would say, fine, the discussion is over. But because there are 2 people who definitely believe that there is, although very limited, nursery operation ongoing, that I think it's worthwhile to go on to the second one. And that question
I'll
is,
continue.
do any of the activities that are being sought, and we've seen the subdivision into 3 different ABC, are any of those previous to the nursery?
I don't think they are. I think if he was proposing those, the last time he went around, that there would have been all different requirements for setbacks. I think everything, the newer things there are
And
not related.
I'm
And that's
sorry,
what
I misspoke. It's previous to the current
Current.
activities, which is
Right.
logs, chipping, contractor, clover.
I think they should have been brought forward right away and probably would have been turned down if, instead of at the day he asked for them because of the interference with the neighborhood, the noise, the setbacks. My understanding is this is a soft, it's not a contractor's yard, it's a nursery, and that's why it has less of a standard for being near neighbors, less in the neighborhood, less setbacks, less noise, everything. And I found that it's a nursery, and I'm willing to stay with those standards, but I think we've said it wasn't a nursery now. But I think the stuff I saw there, I don't think it has anything to do with the newer things. It's anything to do with a nursery. Having visited the site a lot, and shopped there and bought a lot of stuff when it was a nursery. I was very familiar with what it used to look like, and
Sure.
doesn't look like the use. It looks totally different in the use and everything to me, and I don't think any of them belong so close to neighbors. That's my opinion.
The
The
original.
newer uses.
The original decision limited the activity under 1.2 acres, limited the number of, the hours of operation, limited the running of vehicles outside the property because very conscious of the noise in the neighborhood. And we've heard an awful lot of testimony as to the noise created by the tenants of the property that, by the way, should have come before us because it was a change. That's why I made a point of this was given to Mr. Tavares. And this was quite a change, that now we have 3 tenants on the property. So, is there any further discussion on this? Pros, cons?
I think even if we had found that it was a viable nursery, we would still not be able to find that these uses fit.
And now you understand why I continued,
Right.
because of that. Then I think at this point, I need to entertain a motion for denial of the application. No?
We'll write up a motion
Will,
for the
okay.
16th,
Okay, based upon our discussion. tonight.
based upon your discussion and your reasons, yes.
Thank you. That, you can understand why I went into more reasoning just beyond whether it is or is not a nursery. Okay? Thank you, all of you. And we'll be looking for that on the 16th also?
Yes.
Okay.
Could I please have the equipment list and that
Yes.
memo back, please?
And this is the equipment list.
You needed these back too, right?
I'll pick those up,
Okay.
yeah, thanks.
Okay. So, general correspondence, and I do not have a correspondence folder here. So,
I don't believe you have any.
oh, wow, this is a quiet week. And on your agenda, it says our next meeting is September 2nd. It's not. It's the 9th.
That's-
No, no.
I'm sorry,
That's
no.
today.
It's the 16th,
Yes, it's the 16th. Duh.
sorry.
We have to.
16th.
Yeah, the 9th is the primary, so we don't have a meeting on the 9th. So our next meeting is on the 16th. And then as soon as somebody wants to make a motion for adjournment,
I'll move to adjourn.
It's not on the agenda.